Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to see you all. I'm glad to see you're interested in the afterlife. Who here is afraid of death? Anybody? Are you afraid of death? Is my question. He didn't hear. No, okay. You're curious, though, aren't you? All right, yes. Well, I had no clue what happened to me until 30 years later. December 17th, 1966, I was driving on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Has anybody ever driven the Pennsylvania Turnpike? Then you know all the tunnels on that turnpike. Well, it was winter. There was snow all over the ground. It was very cold, so the snow had a coating of ice that glistened when the sun hit it, and it looked like a bunch of diamonds. And I was just admiring a beautiful sunny winter day. And I was driving down the road, and I went through one tunnel, and I came out, and I was heading towards another tunnel, and all of a sudden I heard a gunshot, or what I thought was a gunshot, just as I entered the tunnel. The gunshot wasn't a gunshot, it was a blowout. And I was in a tunnel. And my car wound up being in a perfect ball by the time I exited the tunnel. And I remember opening my eyes. I saw blue and green with flashing lights. I closed my eyes. And the next thing I noticed, I was up on the ceiling in a room in a hospital, watching a doctor and a nurse and other office hospital staff trying to revive a body on the table. I had no clue what was going on, but I was amazed because if I focused on someone, I knew everything about that person. And I thought, wow, this is fascinating. I focused on the doctor. He was having an affair. He's been having an affair for a long time. He's also was in a high-stress job, but he wasn't handling losing patients. And apparently he had lost several patients over the past couple years, and he wanted to quit his profession. And my heart went out to him. Then I focused on the nurse next to him, and I knew everything about her. And I turned and I saw a police officer in the emergency room, knew everything about him. And I thought, whoa, this is fun. And there was a little girl who, I don't know if they're called candy stripers, they're little volunteers, young teenagers in a hospital. And she came in and her eyes were as big as saucers, and she was terrified because she walked into this messy operating room to bring him some paperwork. And I knew everything about her. She was going to quit that same day, by the way. So it took me a while to figure out it was me on the table that they were working on. And I was up above on the ceiling. So I thought, well, I'm getting bored here, so I went up through the ceiling to the next floor of the hospital. The next floor happened to be a solarium. Well, no one was in the solarium, it was wintertime. So I went up to the next level of the hospital, and there was the rooms that have like 5 patients in them. I think they're called wards. And there were a group of men in the ward to the left. And I focused, oh, this guy is going to die in an hour. And this one, oh, his friend is coming. He hasn't seen this guy in like 20 years. He's going to be so surprised. This one's going home. This one's going to stay here until he dies. And I just focused on the room across the hall, which is the ward for women. And I knew everything about them over there, too. And I thought, well, okay, now that I know everything, and I started raising up. And as I was raising up out of the hospital, I noticed I had an umbilical cord, and it was opalescent in color, like the milky opal. But it stretched. So I went up. I was out of the hospital. I saw a nurse walking. She parked at the furthest parking spot. She was trying to lose weight. She was doing her best. We all try to do our best for ourselves. So I went up a little bit higher, and pretty soon I saw the whole block that the hospital was in. And then I kept going up. And pretty soon I saw the county that the hospital was in. And I kept going up. And I was amazed that I was so relaxed over all of this. It was just a journey. It was fun. It was informative. It was peaceful. I mean, what more can you ask for on a trip? So I kept going up. And all of a sudden, it was the big blue marble, like you see from space missions, that the Earth looks like a big blue marble. And I was fascinated with that. I thought, this is beautiful. They were telling the truth. It does look like a blue marble. So I kept going up, and I thought, oh, wait a minute. I don't know where I'm going. So I flipped over, and it was under the Milky Way. And the Milky Way was massive, and it had 1 million stars in it. And I had a thought, where am I going? And all of a sudden, this little medium-sized star said, this is where you're going. And I was in the star going through the tunnel of light. And that tunnel of light, as I was going in it, I was hearing music. People were greeting me, hi, welcome, welcome. And then I saw my mother. And I thought, well, why is my mother here? She's alive down on Earth. But she was there greeting me. And that puzzled me a lot. But I kept going through the light, and I said, no, I need to get to the light. The urge to get back to the source was so strong, I didn't care about anything else. So I finally got to the source. You can call it what you want. I don't know what religions you are, whether it's God, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, they're all the same. It's the energy source of our Creator. It doesn't have either sex. It's non-sexual. It's just this magnificent power of unconditional love that you can't even begin to understand the concept of. And I said, finally, I'm here. I said, why was my life so tough? And they said, don't you remember? And I said, remember what? And they said, you sat down with the council and you chose what you came to this lifetime to learn. And you chose this and this and this. And we said, whoa, wait a minute. Only choose a couple things. No, but I can do it all. I want to do it all. I want to learn all the lessons I'm here to learn. So they brought in more guides that said, don't you remember, we argued with you, you're real stubborn. And we told you that's too much. And I said, no, I want to try it and do it all. So they let me. Big mistake. Listen to your guides when you do this again. So I said, okay, I understand that. And they said, well, we have a question for you. And I said, what? And they said, what do you regret in your lifetime? That's a biggie. when you think back about your lifetime, how many things do you regret? I had one thing in particular I really regretted. I had a neighborhood boy who tormented me all the time. He would not leave me alone. He would make sure he would throw things at me and make me fall. He would do all kinds of things. Well, one day I had it, and I went after him. And I got him, and then I got punished for it. But that was the one thing I regretted, that I hurt another human being. So I said, all right, that's about it that I regret mostly. And they said, okay, you actually achieved what you went down to that plane to learn. Oh, good, I did it. And then they said, or you can have what's behind door number 2. And they cracked this door open, and the brightness of the light and the amount of love pouring out of that exceeded the love that I was in already, that I thought couldn't be exceeded. And I said, oh, that's tempting. So I get to go back if I choose, but I can stay if I choose not to go back. And they said, yes, everything's fine. And I said, well, if I choose to go back, is that doctor meant to stay a doctor? And if I go back, he will stay a doctor? And they said, yes. I said, so he's meant to be a doctor. He's going to save other lifetimes, right? And they said, yes. I said, send me back. I want to give him that gift. And I was in my body, like, boom, that fast. So then I wake up in a hospital, and I'm waking up. There's a guy at the end of my bed, all dressed in black, praying in a Bible of some kind. So I thought, I don't know who this guy is. And I would pass out. I'd wake up again, he was still there. Every time I opened my eyes, this guy was there. And one time I was coherent enough. By the way, my skull was split open and my brain was all swollen. So I wasn't too aware for a while. And so I asked them, I said, who are you? And he says, oh, my wife's dying in the bed next to me. You need the prayers. And I said, okay. And I passed out again. I spent a couple days doing that, awake and pass out, awake, pass out. And then I looked out the next time I remember waking up, and I'm looking out the door of my hospital room. There's these women. They're all dressed head to toe in black or brown. I went, this does not compute. I don't know who these people are. They're dressed weird. And then I would pass out again. And every time I would wake up, I'd say, did I hurt anybody? I don't want to hurt anybody. Did I hurt anybody? And they would not tell me. And that devastated me, that they wouldn't say, no, you didn't hurt anybody. You're okay. You hurt yourself. But they wouldn't tell me that. And that really bothered me. Come to find out, I also had amnesia. But I remembered my whole death journey, and I tried to tell him. I said, but I went someplace. You got to hear my story. No, you're brain damaged. No, you got to understand. No, we don't want to hear it. So for like 30 some odd years, no one would listen to my story. And I was really in a funny place because it was a beautiful story to tell people, but no one wanted to hear it. Until I divorced my husband, moved back to New England, and went to hear a speaker talk at one of their special venues. And the speaker was talking about past life regression. And I thought, I know nothing about this subject. I'm curious. So I went to hear him talk, and he brought up near-death experience. I got to talk to this guy. I don't know what that means, but I think that's what I had. So for that, over 30 years, I did not even know what it was called that I experienced. So I talked to him after the whole meeting broke up, and he says, you've got to go to the University of Connecticut in Fairfield. That's where all the research in death experiences started. So I went, and I connected with the people there at a meeting. And they went around the room. There were about 40 people in a meeting room. And everybody would introduce themselves. And they would introduce one name, first name only, first, last, it didn't matter to anybody. And why were you here? One person says, my name is Mary, and I'm here because I lost someone. The next person say, my name is Joe, and I'm here because I'm curious as all get out what the other side is like. And then the next person would say, my name's Barbara, and I've had a death experience. And I'd go, ooh, 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 I want to hear this story. And then they went around. Everybody got their choice. When it came to me, I said, my name is Sue, and maybe I had one. I don't know. And so they finished going around the room to everybody. And then the person running the meeting said, Sue, we want to hear your story. And I said, no one wants to hear my story. And I started crying. I said, because I held it in for so long, and I've asked people so many times, and they didn't want to hear about it. And they said, we do. And I just bursted out crying. And they held me. Grizz held me. He was an experiencer. And the room stayed quiet until I finished bawling my eyes out. And then I started telling the story, and they started saying, yep, 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 you're an experiencer, all right, yep, yep. And they validated me. And that was the first time in my life that I felt like I wasn't crazy, and that other people understood and experienced the same thing that I did. And then someone announced, well, the meeting's over with. And I said, no, no one can go. I need to talk to people. And they said, well, didn't you read any books on the subject? I said, I didn't even know what it was called. How could I read a book on it if you can't find out what it was called? So they gave me a list of books and stuff, and they said, but we continue our meeting at a restaurant down the hill. So we went down there, and I was there till 2 in the morning when they closed the restaurant. And I drove 78 miles back to my home so I could go to take a shower and go to work the next morning. And they met once a month, and they explained that there are groups all over the country, all over the world, that are trying to support the people who have had these experiences. And I couldn't get enough of the books, the people, their stories, and our abilities that we come back with once we had the experience. I found home. Other than the home I found when I had my death experience, my first one. The second one happened in a surgery. It changes your life, and it makes it very hard to be here in this plane, because you know that God only wants you to love and support one another, whether you have the same belief systems, whether you agree with their choices or not. just be kind and treat them like you want to be treated. Understand and give them the compassion and the space to be who they are so you can be who you are. And it's hard when you come back and you see this materialistic world and find out that everybody has their focus in the wrong place. And one of the ladies I met at that group committed suicide. She tried to commit suicide because she couldn't take it here after having her experience. So we have our own issues as experiencers, just like people here having their own issues, whether it's a health issue, an emotional, a family issue, or what have you. And I'm very thankful. I've been in research programs with Raymond Moody and Ken Ring and several of the other people who started the research into this subject matter. And there's plenty of good books out there, and there are some that aren't so good. PMH Atwater wrote a great one called Coming Back to Life. Her book was excellent. She's written several books. So we all have similarities to our experiences. We all have different experiences. Like Al had an experience where he met the Grim Reaper because he always believed when he died the Grim Reaper was what he would see. And so that's what he did see. But when he talked to the Grim Reaper said, well, you created me, so I'm here. So Al said, well, I think you need to go. So he did. So his experience turned out to be a nice experience of choice. And so we can laugh about death. Some of us kidded, and some people are shocked that we kid about death, and we can't wait to go. Man, I'm going to have a party. And it's a wonderful group of people that have blessed my life. And I'm not afraid of anything in this life anymore, so I try anything and everything I can to live life to the fullest and to the best that I can. And hopefully I leave a little mark of kindness with everybody that I meet. And I can tell you a little bit about my second experience. That one was a real quickie. I was having a surgery, and I tell the doctors, like I tell them all the time, A, I don't handle drugs well. B, I'm tiny. Don't give me what you give a 200-pound person. And so they were giving me a saddle block, like they give every woman who is giving birth anymore. And he gave it to me, and he gave it to me too fast, and he lost me, and I went out. I went right to the light, but I was blocked by about 4 people that wanted me to go party and drink with them and everything. I'm there, no, that's not my style. Well, you can't go to the light. I says, look, if I can't go to the light, I'm going back because I have choices. No, you got to stay and drink and party with. No, I am going back. My choice. And I did. I came back. Well, the anesthesiologist said, I'm going to put you out. And I said, honey, you put me way out. And you will not give me any more stuff because I will haunt you and every member of your family for every lifetime that they are on this planet. Do you got it? And he was like, and my surgeon said, she's numb, just talk to her, you know. And so they finished the surgery, and I was fine, a little shook up, but I was fine. I thought, well, I handled that okay. But it's a journey that we all take. It's always our last journey. But some get choices, some don't. And if it's your last journey, make it count. It is something to embrace, something to not be afraid of, something to be happy, because on the other side you are a jillion times happier and more loved than you ever are here on this plane. This is like a schoolhouse for us. Every lifetime we elevate ourselves and graduate to different levels. So if anyone has any questions, I'm open to questions. Yes.
Did you learn much about reincarnation? Did you learn anything about that in your...
Well, that I did it. There are, yeah, you view other lifetimes that you've had, and based on that, you get to choose the lessons you want to learn or the achievements you want to do in the current lifetime that you're choosing with your guides. So, yeah, there are other lifetimes. There are books. There's one book called The Boy Who Knew True. And it was a little boy in India who was born to a family, and they were out shopping one day, and he saw a woman, and he ran to her, and he called her by her name. He knew everything about her and her family. He happened to be a child of that family who died and reincarnated to connect back with the family. And it's a very tiny little book. It's about 30, 40 pages, if I'm remembering right. And it was a wonderful story, and it's proven.
When you spoke with the council members,
Yes,
or the people who were giving the information,
mm-hmm.
They were your guides, they were people, did they look like humans?
No, they're on the other side. It's all energy. Everything is energy. It's just like this table is energy, but it's so condensed that we perceive it as a table. But the energy on the other side, which we are all part of, this body is controlling our energy, our source, our soul. And on the other side, everything is non-shaped thing. You just perceive it as God, or as your guide, or as an angel, or as, because that's the energy they give off.
I'm just curious about the party people that you ran into.
Yeah.
I've been involved in facilitating regressions before, and anything can happen, but I'm curious what your take on that is.
My take, they were a test for me, and I've been regressed before. In fact, the gentleman who gave the talk about regression therapy took me about 6 months to get brave enough to be regressed. And it was interesting because when he regressed me, he asked me to put a list of questions, and then he asked me, can I ask a question once all your questions are answered? And I said, yes. So I drove to his home where he did the regression, and he regressed me, and I'm very sensitive and emotional, so a few of the things that came up in regression, I would cry, and he'd bring me up to the clouds, bring me up. No, I want to be down there. I want to face that, And so when we were all done, he said, now can I ask my question? And I said, yes. And he said, were you and I ever in a lifetime together? And I'm going through the lifetimes, and I'm going through time and space, and I'm going through time. And all of a sudden I went, Daddy, you're my daddy. And I started bawling, and he up to the, I know, put me back down. You're my daddy. You used to sit with me and explain all these little bugs and what their purpose in life were, and you loved me so much, and blah, blah, blah. And we went on, and by the time I got through, he was crying. And he checked out the name I gave him, the area that we lived in, and he found evidence that I existed. So, yeah, that was a shocker. In fact, when I went in to hear him speak, I was running late, which I'm never late, and he was coming in behind me. And while I'm waiting in line to pay the $5 to attend this speech, I turned to him and said, you and I are going to be the best of friends for many years. And I thought, why did I say that to him? It was just something instinctive in me that says, tell him. And then I went and I hid in the back row of the audience. And sure enough, we wound up being good friends for like 18 years. And we lost touch because I've moved several times and stuff. But yeah, past life regression is quite interesting. Yeah, and it's funny, I've known something about people without knowing who they were or never meeting them before, and I tell them, and they go, how do you know? I just got a message, thank you. And I take off because a lot of people don't handle that well. Yes?
No, I was just going to ask if you've had other experiences, psychic experiences during your life.
Oh, many experiences.
Tell us some.
I remember I was about 4 or 5, about this high next to my mother in church saying, God didn't want this. This isn't God's idea of what religion and Catholicism should be. And I saw the hypocrisy of people going into church and praying and then turn around and sinning the rest of the week and then coming back and thinking they're all absolved the next week. I've known that people were hurt. Actually, the guy I called Dad from my regression therapist, he was on a trip to California, Central State. He and his 2 sons were taking a bike ride trip. I'm sitting in Massachusetts having my morning coffee going, oh God, this is so good. I need to wake up. And all of a sudden you go, oh, he's hurt. So I thought, I don't know what happened. All I know is he got hurt. So I call his wife and I says, hey, when's Dad coming home? And his wife said, well, not until this coming weekend. And I says, emergency, have him call me right away. He calls me when he gets in, and I said, how was your trip? He goes, oh, we did this, we did that, we rode here, we did that. And I said, okay, you're leaving something out. He says, what am I leaving out? I says, you got hurt, you got hit by a car. How did you know? What date? What time? You know that? And I said, yeah, I got it when I was drinking my morning coffee. And he validated that. The cop said, you're going to be checked out because you're not continuing this bike ride until you do get checked out. And he forced him to go get checked out, and then he continued the bike ride. So there are things like that. I know that I've gotten off the freeway, or I've slowed down and pulled over knowing that an accident was going to happen. It's just, there was a young man working, my friend Barbara, who was an experiencer. She ran a startup company. She graduated MIT. And she had a young man who used to come to our meetings and take copious notes. This guy probably could fill this room up with all the notes from all the meetings he's attended. And he would sit up in the meeting and says, well, how did you know that? And I says, go check your notes. We all come back with something that we either read bodies for health, we heal people, we all have these little abilities we come back with. And so I called Barbara up. I said, he hurt his toe. And she goes, what? Now she's in Connecticut. I'm working in northern Massachusetts. I'm at work and I go, he hurt his toe. So we had a meeting the next week. She said, okay, I'll check it out. So next meeting comes, he comes. I said, oh, no, you're going to come sit near me right here. You know, I don't want to sit near you. I scared him. And I said, no, you have to come sit near me. I said, because no matter where you sit, I'll go sit near you. He had no choice. So I said, so you hurt your toe. And being a smart-ass young man, he says, bet you don't know what toe I hurt. So during the meeting, I'm starting to draw a foot on a piece of paper. Now, usually people either hurt the big toe or the little toe. He hurt the toe next to the little toe. So I draw an arrow to that little toe. He got up and he left. I ran after him. I says, you're going to come back and you're going to say, no, you really scare me. And I says, did I hurt you? I said, he says, you know when I do things that I'm not supposed to do. And I says, well, don't do them. That'll stop it. So just things like that. I just happen to try to listen to the message or pass it on to people. And I'm right most of the time. Yes, the lady in black.
I wanted to ask you what you thought of this. Both my parents and then a client of a hospice nurse. My mother, when she died, she looked up and went like this with one eye, because she has really bad one eye. And my father, when he died at the last, he looked up with both hands, with both eyes.
That's the transition between this and this place here and that place. That's the veil lifting, and they see their lost loved ones from decades ago. They see the light. They feel the presence of love, and they want to go there. And a lot of times the people left behind, the ones sitting with their loved ones, don't want them to go, and they're playing tug of war instead of saying, go, be free. Really, I'll be fine. And that's all they're waiting to hear is, they'll be fine.
Okay, and then a hospice, after this happened, I was talking to a hospice nurse, and she said that one of her clients, I told her about these, and she said, well, not everybody has good experiences. I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, one of my clients was dying, and he saw his abusive father who molested him, and he came to get him, and he was saying, no, no, no. He was just having a really bad time about it, and he died like that. So how do you address that?
Once he transitions, he understands on the other side. People, and this is hard for a lot of people like Hitler. When Hitler died, God embraced and loved him, welcomed him with open arms, because his choice of lessons to teach or to learn were to wake up the world about how people can manipulate and run and control and murder, mass murder and stuff. And we stopped him and he died. But when he transitioned, God said, you did a damn good job over there.
You have to be careful about that.
Yeah, I know, but it's true that
People down along that.
God is all loving. And when we choose things, he puts his seal of approval on them. And with that, you are accepted back with total love. No one is rejected. And whether it's, like I said, God, Allah, whatever you want to call, whatever religion you are, or non-religion, the Supreme Being is that supreme. And it's a very hard concept to understand because I have hated that guy for years. And I can't believe that someone could cause such mass destruction of human beings. But we've got Rwanda. We've got many other, the Armenians are, there's so much genocide happening all over our world. And the more we can love and show compassion, that'll take all of that away, hopefully someday. And we won't have war anymore, but we have got to walk the talk and be examples out there. And it may seem frustrating at times for a lot of people, but we will leave a little bit of something good when we leave. And if we can leave one person smiling and saying, I was valued. This person, I was a homeless person on the street, and she took time to say, hi, I hope you have a beautiful day. Can I get you something? You know, just recognizing that other people have needs and you're willing to give to them is all it takes. Now that person, it could have changed his whole life. Just smiling at a person and you walk down the street, they could be having a real lousy day, but that smile, hi, you know, and it'd say, wow, oh, man, that felt good, you know. You've got to give what you want to get. And I think part of our lessons in life here are to do our portion of it. You've had an experience. You know the unconditional love, right? Yeah. Yes, the lady in back.
How did you rectify being here after having that wonderful, peaceful, loving experience?
And struggling.
This is rough. Good.
I am struggling. I don't want to be here. I welcome that, and I keep telling him, okay, anytime, you know. I have trouble. And I find that I go into my cave a lot because I can't deal with public, being out in public with people. It's hard because their focus is either on their phones, their iPads, I got to get ahead of this car. It's like, no, you gotta back off and enjoy. You are here for a purpose. Now figure it out. I am not doing well here. And it's because I know what's on the other side waiting, and I really want to be there. And I'm going to have to wait, I guess, until the right time. It's too beautiful.
Well, I connected with what you said about purpose. My father died when I was 3. Struggled in school, I'd go home in tears, and she'd say, tell your father, he knows what's going on. Talk to him. He'll hear you and put thoughts in your head, and later, those thoughts you'll say, that came from my father. I'm thinking my earthly father. But it changed as I got older. And when I used to ask her, well, what church there are so many? She said, it was not the door you go through, it's your conversation with God. Do you have a relationship? Whoever you call your God.
Yes, I
was
do.
sitting with me, and over the decade, if I look back each decade, I see I had to go through this before I was ready with this, what you're saying about learning lessons. And that's kind of the way he took me, from struggling in elementary school, probably part of my father dying early, but also I could see the steps that I had to go through, the learning. And my strength was working with children who didn't fit in traditional classroom methods. And so my conversation with him is thanking him for the struggles that I had to go through. So I don't have a question, I only have an affirmation.
And that's true. And I can say, if I'm having a real bad day, I can say, oh, guides, I need a hug. And I actually feel them hugging me. They're there, everybody, our angels, our guides, our passed on family and loved ones. All you have to do is ask. They're there for you. They're right here. They're all around us. We just need to tune into them. And the more you meditate, the more you'll feel and sense and be aware of all these presences that are here, but no one acknowledges because of belief or what have you. And sometimes I really get to a bad place and I really need hugs. And then pretty soon I'm getting a lot of hugs. And then I breathe into them and I'm okay for a while. And then I go my merry way. And then sometimes I say, it's rough. I need another hug. I'm struggling. We all struggle.
Sue, I just want to say what an amazing soul you are. You had a choice up there about coming back or not, and you considered the surgeon because you were able to understand what he was dealing with, and you made that choice. And I want to thank you for him because he probably will never know that you did that.
I did. No. I wrote a letter years later, and I wanted to tell him I was aware of his struggles and that to thank him for bringing me back. Didn't tell him I was my choice, but he needed to believe that he brought me back. And when I called the hospital and they said he refuses communication. This man is still hurting. I said, but you don't understand. This will uplift him. This will be something he needs to hear. He needs to feel. He needs to know he did well. He needs this. No, we can put it in his file. Until he asks for it, he won't know. I said, let him know, please. Please call him. Let him know. And they said, no, he doesn't want communication.
You know what you did.
I know what I did, and anybody up there knows unconditional love. You do whatever you have to give it to someone else.
Exactly, and you're also doing that on the pilot. So, I mean, you talk about the smiling amount, I know you do it. And so you touched a lot of people in addition to that doctor since you made that decision. I know it's hard to be on the planet when you really want to be back there, you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
But I just want to thank you.
Oh, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. A lot of us are suffering with that same issue, and occasionally I'll go back to Connecticut and go sit with a group which has evolved and changed over the decades, but yeah. And that's what unconditional love is. It doesn't matter. You just do what someone needs. And he broke my heart that he was going to quit. And no one should quit when they're doing something good. He just needed to learn he was not God. It was not really his choice. He needed to do the best he could do, and that was all that was asked of him. So if that made him save more lives, I was happy to do it. And so thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Sue,
Oh,
as you know, there are some near-death experiences that are very negative. And the experiencer will describe seeing ghoulish beings and people in huge agony. And my thought has always been that when one passes away, they go to a level that is similar to what their consciousness is upon dying. And so that if they've lived a very evil life, they go to a lower level that involves some negativity, but because of the loving God, oneness, they're allowed to grow on up.
Yes, I agree with that. I just haven't had experience with that. So I'm sure like Al saw the Grim Reaper, but that changed. And he also informed the doctor of, he said, I died. And the doctor said, oh, no, everything, you're alive. And he said, no, because you had to send for a special machine that was called blah, 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 and gave up a bunch of numbers. And the surgeon goes, how do you know? And he says, I told you I died. I was out there watching you. And so the doctor, there are a lot of medical professionals won't accept the death experience. And again, they think they're God. People in professions are so locked into their profession in a certain way that they're not open to evolve in it. I even volunteered in hospice for a while. Bless this woman and her son. They researched every single religion on earth. And one day I said, oh, well, then you must know about near-death experiences. And then I told him I had to, and oh, wow. So I told him about it. And every time I went to see this woman, she was in a different facility. She had more travel miles on her than anything. But when I found her, and I knew it was her, she would die within a couple hours. So I held her hand and I talked, and a nurse came in and she says, we don't discuss things like that. And it's amazing how some people working in that won't accept that. And yet there are other nurses who say, oh yeah, I almost saw the soul raise out of the body. You know, so you have a whole gamut of people and their belief systems. And when I left this woman, I called her son. I said, get there quick. She's going to be dying soon. And I mean real soon. And by the time he got there, she had died. And she went peacefully, which we were both thankful. And he hugged me and he says, thank you. You've really helped make this different. My life is different. And I said, yeah, now if we can only change the hospice system. You know? And then I quit hospice because I couldn't stand being told I couldn't talk about death experiences. And I thought, of all people, they need to know it's wonderful. They need to just let it be and let it happen.
I'm curious what happened in the tunnel. Did you ever find out if there were other people injured?
Oh, thank you. No, I didn't hurt anybody else, although the state of Pennsylvania sent me a nice bill for all the damage I did in the tunnel, and I took out a few poles when I came out of the tunnel, and yeah, I just, Ma, send it to the insurance company. I had insurance, so thank God. But I lost my car. My slant 6 engine was upright. And it was a perfect ball. They had to use the jaws of life to breathe. I even shattered the little glass on the radio on the, I mean, who shatters that little piece of glass that's not even a quarter of an inch by 3 inches? You know, it was an old car. Anyone else that has questions, comments?
It would seem like to me if you have a relationship with your creator, and however you create, while you're living, it'll be an easy transition. Because you're gonna go, well, wherever you take me, I'll be with you, so whatever it is. But if you don't have, that's where you have trouble, I would think.
Again, it's all choice. I was shocked when I was watching them work, and it took me a while to figure out it was me that they were working on. I thought I was so calm and peaceful over it. It was like sitting in a movie theater watching something happen on a screen, except for the screen was down here and I was up here. And usually that's not my modus operandi, so and I marveled at that even afterwards. And I even say to the higher being, the universe, I call it the universe, I say to the universe, it's okay to take me out in another car accident as long as I don't hurt anyone else. Because that means more to me than anything. I do not want to take anyone with me or even hurt someone when I go out. And that is critical. That's my caveat. That's what I want. Whether I get it or not, I don't know. But hey, not my choice. I just put it out there. Yes.
I have one last thing that you said to me.
Here comes the mic.
I'm going home. And my mother, a psychiatrist who was with us, said she's getting ready to go home. To which I thought, if I'm going home, then I came from somewhere. So where I came from, I know I'm going home. And that's very comforting when I lose someone and I will see them again. Like you say, it won't be the same form. Yeah. But somehow you recognize it.
It's because of the unconditional love. We all started, think of us as all drops from the ocean. Okay, you're a drop, we're all drops. We're still the ocean. So when we die, we revert back to the ocean and we feel at one again. You can't even begin to explain infinity or unconditional love because you can't compare it to anything on this plane. But it is unbelievable. The colors on the other side, the most vivid pink, blue, green, yellow, orange, are dull here compared to there. And they could be the brightest thing in this plane. And they're dull. The music there really is beautiful on the other side. It is unbelievable. The love, total unconditional. You don't have to be afraid of anything. You just are enveloped with it. And the brightness of the light behind door number 2. I didn't think anything could top where I was. And yet they gave me the choice of number 2. I took it. Not everybody is given a choice, by the way. Some people, some young mothers who have to leave a baby or children behind, they want to come back. And sometimes it's not in the card, and sometimes it is. So you don't always get a choice. And what that is based on, I have no clue. All I can speak of is from my experience, and I was given a choice. And I know I made the good choice, even though I kick myself for making that choice. Because being here is tough. Yes?
Do you believe there is a hell and heaven? If you live in the right way, you go to the heaven, and if you live the wrong way, you go to hell.
No hell. No hell. Hell is a belief that people have here that we're taught. If you believe in an all-loving God, is your Buddha your God? Who's your God?
I am Buddhist, but I do respect all the religion, and I do believe the right thing to do in life from your heart. You do it because of your heart, not because of your own benefit.
Yes.
However, we do believe that if you kill the people, you destroy the life, when you pass, you have some kind of punishment.
Well, you're sent right back, honey. Yeah, you don't get to stay and enjoy and rejuvenate on the other side and bask in all that unconditional love. They say, you did that, okay, well, guess what? You're turning right around. You got to go back and make restitution, or that's your hell. This is my hell. Here. Okay? You see, while you're there, all the people transitioning, you're going right back, you're going right back. Oh, you get to stay, okay. You can stay forever, you can do this, you have choices, but some of the people's choices are not given to them because of what they've done. And so they're turned around and say, you didn't learn your lesson, you're going back. Until you keep repeating the lesson until you get it. Now they can have a choice of when they repeat the lesson, but some of them aren't given the choice.
You know what happens when we've learned our lessons and we've lived our multiple lifetimes? What's the final step? Do we just live in paradise as a soul forever?
What I was told was we evolve, and there's different realms we can visit, or universes, or multidimensional areas we can visit and explore and learn and come back and question. We can stay and enjoy it, but that gets boring after a while. So people say, okay, where can I go now? What can I, you get antsy, you want to do something. You can only sit and lay on the beach just for so long until it says, okay, this is getting old. And that's what it's like over there. Some people who've had a real rough life get to spend longer time there to re-energize and rebuild their soul and nourish what they feel they need. Now, you and I can experience the identical lifetimes, but maybe you will spend fewer time up there than I would because I'm sensitive, super sensitive, where you may be just sensitive, or it didn't affect you, perceived it differently. Our perception has a lot to do with the situation. So your perception of the trauma is totally different than mine. I mean, you look at a family with 3 kids, same thing happens to the whole family. Every person handles it differently. Every person is at a different stage. So it's the same that when you transition on the other side.
So assuming that your accident was one of the exit points that was part of your soul contract, do you think that you met your soul contract? Because you were being taken to the other side. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, I was taken to the other side and I was told I did everything, I achieved everything I had set out to achieve. Maybe not to the best of my ability, but I achieved, you can pass a test with an A+, or you can pass it with a C, but, it's like, and so I was told I achieved it, but I could achieve more if I went back, and the more was giving unconditional love to that doctor. That was my number one concern. He was so torn up, and he was destroying his life, his marriage, and everything else. He was on a self-destructive path that wasn't going to stop. I don't know if it ever did. I'm just hoping that it gave him a little sucker to take a breath and reevaluate what he was doing. Yes.
I would like to understand a little bit more about suicide.
My grandmother, at the age of 76, in good health, basically, committed suicide
a good practicing Catholic. Now, if there's ever a no-no in the Catholic Church, suicide is. And it was something I couldn't comprehend. This was 30 years ago. I just couldn't understand how she was always praying and everything about about her children and her grandchildren and everything, and then she commits suicide. And I just never could understand if that is really how that affects the afterlife.
I haven't done it, so I can't answer it. I know that one lady who had a death experience had committed suicide, and she was sent back without a choice. And she vowed that she wouldn't do it again. She lives in Alpine, California. She was sent back. I don't know, does your religion address suicide?
Yes, if we suicide, if we kill ourselves before the time comes, our soul is not escape, just be around.
Yeah.
Therefore, you need a super spirit to pray, to guide, and perform a ceremony to let your soul escape.
Thank you, because I don't know what the other religions say, so I'm a little lost here.
Question.
Yes.
Based on your life story, I think that you have a super psychic ability.
Yes.
That psychic ability must come from an angel, some people, spirit, to guide you, to blessing you. Do you recognize that?
Oh, I do, yes.
I know who it is.
You know, I've had a guide and a spirit that every once in a while I smell smoke, someone who smokes. And I was questioning that, and I asked my past life regression, I says, who could this be? You know, and they said, well, wasn't your father a fireman? I says, yeah, he was. Well, there's your smoke. And I'm thinking, cigarette smoke. Smoke to me is smoke. So it's probably him. I don't know. Okay, well, I appreciate all of you coming. Thank you so much. And go read some books.